A new turn today in the investigation into a deadly shooting in Lexington. Police now say the man who died was shot and killed by someone he tried to rob.
A lawyer accused of defrauding the government out of millions is released from jail. The rules he must follow while he's out on bond.
We're in Frankfort tracking negotiations as lawmakers try to reach a deal on the budget before time runs out.
This is WKYT News at 5.
Good afternoon to you. A twist today as police investigate Lexington's latest homicide.
They now say the man who died planned to rob the person who shot him. And meanwhile, 2 UK students have also been arrested in the robbery plot. WKYT's Monique Blair is live now outside police headquarters with our top story at 5. Monique?
Well, Sam and Amber, all 3 of those suspects who are being charged with first-degree robbery are currently freshmen at the University of Kentucky. Nicholas Coriacci was on the dean's list last semester. Now, Lexington police tell us those 3 suspects, plus the man who died, 28-year-old James Gordon, devised a plan to rob another man, an acquaintance of theirs, outside the Woodland Avenue apartment complex early Saturday morning. Police say they told the acquaintance that it was a narcotics transaction.
And while doing that transaction, 2 of these individuals produced a weapon and attempted to rob this individual, who then in turn acted in self-defense and shot Mr. Gordon and Mr. Coriacci.
Gordon later died from his injuries. Today, both Coriacci and Whalen faced a judge and both pleaded not guilty to the charge of first-degree robbery. Police have a warrant out for the 3rd suspect's arrest, Alexander Farrell, and they believe he will turn himself in sometime tonight. Now, police tell us that acquaintance who fatally shot Gordon is cooperating with police, and at this time, he does not face any charges. But police say more charges could still be added to everyone involved in this situation. Reporting live in Lexington, Monique Blair, WKYT.
And University of Kentucky police released a statement saying in part, quote, to the extent that they are in potential violation of the student code of conduct involved, the university will proceed accordingly with a full review.
An Eastern Kentucky lawyer accused of defrauding the federal government out of millions of dollars is out of jail. A judge allowed Eric Conn out on a $1.25 million bond, but his freedom comes with strict conditions. WKYT's Hillary Thornton shows us the judge's orders.
The judge says this is a decision he went back and forth with, acknowledging there are significant flight risks in the case, however, saying there's not enough to keep the defendant, Eric Conn, detained. Conn walking out of the courthouse today on a $1.25 million bond. The judge ordering his Pikeville home that is currently listed for sale as the security bond. In explaining his decision, the judge noted all concerns brought by the government during last week's 3-hour-long detention hearing are dated, saying there is not evidence of Conn making statements recently about fleeing the country, and also noted he has significant ties to the community. The judge then laid out what he called strict conditions for Conn's time out on bond. The attorney will be on home incarceration monitored by a GPS device. He will only be able to leave home for pre-approved events for things like doctor's appointments, family events, or to meet with his defense team. Conn is required to be at all hearings pertaining to his case. He is not allowed to travel outside of the Eastern District of Kentucky and will surrender his passport. Conn did ask the judge if he can go to his law office in Floyd County, which he noted is only about 15 miles from where he will be staying on home incarceration. The judge did deny that. He also must not have any contact with witnesses in the case, including former employees that worked for him during the indictment period. Now, neither Conn nor any of his attorneys would comment on the conditions. Conn is now headed back home, where the probation office in Pikeville will install his monitoring device. The judge told Conn in closing that a lot of trust goes into these types of situations, saying he is confident that Conn will comply. Conn then responded to the judge by telling him his trust is not misplaced and that he fully intends on defending himself alongside his attorneys. In Lexington, Hillary Thornton, WKYT.
Conn's attorneys accepted the conditions with the understanding they will be back in court for another hearing after Conn has complied for some time to seek reduced conditions.
A lesson from Mom helped a 13-year-old know what to do when 2 men tried to lure him into their van. Caleb Johnson says the men approached him on Maple Street as he walked home from Garrett Middle School yesterday. Johnson tells us his mom gave him a password that only people who have been sent to pick him up know. And when he asked for the password, he says the men took off.
She told us like a long time ago, like to stay away from the van and just stay away from anybody who like tells you to, if you need a ride or anything like that, because she said you can never trust people. And like she made us a password and everything for us to use in case that happened.
Police say the password is an idea that every parent should consider talking about with their children. Police plan to step up patrols around the schools there. It's coming right down to the wire. Lawmakers have been meeting today to try and reach a deal on the state budget. There's only one working day left this week for them to come up with a budget agreement. WKYT's Victor Puente is live at the state capitol with the very latest. Victor?
Lawmakers have been in that conference committee for about 3.5 hours. If they can't reach an agreement in the next few days, the governor has said he's ready for a shutdown. Today was originally scheduled as the last day of this legislative session, but lawmakers agreed to push it back to Friday because they still haven't passed a budget. The sticking point was cuts to higher education. Governor Matt Bevin had pushed for 9% cuts for state-funded universities and colleges. The democratically controlled House refused those cuts. Now, the House and Senate have tentatively agreed to a 4.5% cut. Yesterday, Senate President Robert Stivers told us they have some other issues to work through, including disagreements on coal severance funds and how much money to put into the state's pension system. The state's constitution requires this session ends by midnight on Friday. If it doesn't, the governor has the option of calling a special session so lawmakers can pass one. But he told us earlier today he has no intention of doing that. He said he's confident lawmakers can pass a budget, but if they don't, it could lead to a partial government shutdown on July 1st.
And so if that pain and suffering is to be inflicted as a result of intransigence on the part of our current people responsible for getting this done, including Speaker Stumbo, if that were to happen, he can take that to his constituents and explain why he chose to unroll that on their particular situations.
While the session doesn't technically end until Friday at midnight, lawmakers only actually have about another day to get this agreement. That's because it takes about 30 hours to print out a bill so it can be voted on the floor. Live from the Capitol Annex, Victor Puente, WKYT.
And the governor said those cuts to education are necessary because the state's pension system is more than $30 billion in debt. We'll have to deal with maybe one more night of cold before nicer weather moves in.
Boy, does it ever. We have a warm-up on the way for the rest of the week. WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey's here now with a check of that forecast.
Yeah, I'm over here bouncing around knowing that the weather is looking so much better over the next several days, and especially timing for the weekend looks awesome as of now. Looking good outside, not feeling the best in the world, but boy, look at that blue sky over top of the green bluegrass state of Kentucky as of now. And the grass over the next several days really going to take off. Winds are gusting up to around 16 miles an hour. It's 55 degrees as of now. Humidity is low and it's continuing to drop, and that's going to allow temperatures as soon as the sun sets to drop off fairly quickly. Most areas low and mid 50s as expected. Southeastern Kentucky, a couple of added degrees on top of that. With that drop in temperatures coming after sunset, by tomorrow morning, the numbers may be on the frosty cold side, and it is, shocker, shocker, a frost advisory first thing tomorrow morning. By 11 this evening, we've got some pockets of upper 30s already beginning to show up under mainly clear sky. Defender Radar Network, forget about it. It's taking a break. Frosty cold night ahead. That's leading our short-term headlines. Longer term spring, though, finally begins to show up. We'll track that warm pattern with a new hour-by-hour forecast in just a few minutes.
A family needs a place to stay after their home burned this morning. Firefighters were called to a home on Deer Crossing Way off Todd's Road about 11:15. They tell us neighbors noticed the fire in an attached garage and beat on the door to warn the 3 people inside. They made it out safely along with their pets. The fire caused significant damage to the home. The Red Cross was called in to help the fire victims.
A second lawsuit has been filed in a deadly fire. Our county-by-county coverage begins in Clark County. Tina Reynolds and 2 other people died when the B&P apartments in Winchester burned last month. During an interview with WKYT, Jackie Heisel Jr. admitted the fire began as he smoked near his oxygen tank. Reynolds' husband is suing Heisel, the apartment complex, and its owner. The suit claims the couple's smoke alarm didn't go off, they had no balcony or fire escape, and that management knew that Heisel smoked near his oxygen tank but didn't take action against him. In Madison County, police have arrested a man accused of attacking a police officer. Berea police say that 57-year-old Landis Harding attacked the officer from behind on Tree Line Drive. Police say the officer was trying to get in his cruiser at the time. Harding is charged with assault and resisting arrest. In Bell County, a report of shots fired ended up with the arrest of 2 people in drug charges. The sheriff's office says they were called to David and Kathy Hurley's home, where the couple reported gunmen hiding in the woods. Deputies didn't find anyone. They say the pair admitted to using meth. They each face several charges, including public intoxication. Authorities continue to make progress as they investigate the deadly terrorist attacks in Brussels. 2 men have been charged in relation to the March 22nd bombings. They allegedly rented an apartment that served as the hideout for one of the bombers. Belgian police have also arrested 3 other people in connection to the November terrorist attacks in Paris. Well, the candidates for president have turned their focus to New York ahead of the state's upcoming primary.
So far, the front runners on both sides have the lead. Hannah Daniels is tracking the campaigns as they fight for votes.
I think there is a little bit that's...
Hillary Clinton joined U.S. women's soccer star Megan Rapinoe and others in Manhattan to talk about the gender pay gap.
Groceries don't cost us less, rent doesn't cost us less, so why should we be paid less?
Polls show Clinton with a double-digit lead in New York, but Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders told supporters he can still win if he gets a large turnout.
Please do everything that you can to come out and vote. Bring your friends, your neighbors.
On the Republican side, polls show Donald Trump with a big lead in his home state.
Even with a New York win next week, experts say it's unlikely for Trump to get enough delegates to clinch the Republican nomination.
That could lead to a contested convention, which opens the door for Ted Cruz, John Kasich, and perhaps even others. Kasich told voters they have a choice.
Anybody that chooses to drive America on the dark side is not doing a favor to the American people, because we will overcome.
One person who says he is staying out of the race is House Speaker Paul Ryan.
I do not want, nor will I accept the nomination for our party.
Ryan says the nominee should be someone who has participated in the primary process. Hannah Daniels for CBS News, New York.
That statement from Ryan may not end the speculation. He also denied interest in the Speaker's job when John Boehner first announced his resignation. Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland met with one of the Republicans who could move his nomination forward. Garland had breakfast with Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Charles Grassley. The senator is refusing to let the committee give Garland a hearing. Senator Grassley called the meeting cordial and pleasant, but said he explained to Garland why his nomination won't be moving forward.
It has been a day of cleanup across northern Texas after storms ripped across that region. Hail and heavy rains damaged homes and businesses, as well as cutting out power to thousands of people. And just across the border in Arkansas, a couple barely escaped injury when a tree fell on their home.
I heard hail, and I said, "Oh Lord, just protect us from those trees." I didn't start praying soon enough.
Good sense of humor there. There were no reports of major injuries. The storms did force one Texas school district to close today so workers could repair buildings. A billionaire is proposing a plan to search for life in outer space. Yuri Milner wants to send a swarm of postage stamp-sized spacecrafts into outer space on a giant laser on Earth that would empower them. The project could cost $100 million. Milner has enlisted the help of famed physicist Stephen Hawking and Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg to help.
It is time now for better living, health, education, and consumer news that impacts your life. Large pickups might seem like a good bet when it comes to safety on the road. However, recent crash tests show some of those trucks aren't as tough as they look. Terry Okita has the results.
In the rough and tumble market of large pickup trucks, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, IIHS, says the Ford F-150 Super Cab earns its top rating, performing best in all of its crash tests.
When Ford redesigned this vehicle, they clearly did a good job of targeting all the crash modes.
The IIHS says the Ford F-150 is best at helping vehicle occupants withstand serious injuries, especially leg and foot injuries after a crash. These crash tests replicate what happens when a pickup truck runs off the road and hits a tree, pole, or another vehicle. Among the tests, 2 front impacts and a side crash.
We looked at rear impact tests, and then we also looked at roof strength tests.
In addition to Ford's top rating, the IIHS says the Chevy Silverado 1500 double cab and the Toyota Tundra double cab each garnered acceptable safety ratings.
But both the Dodge Ram 1500 crew cab and quad cab did not fare so well, receiving poor ratings for vehicle structure. The IIHS says the force of the crashes in these 2 models shoved portions of the door hinges, instrument panels, and steering columns towards the occupants. The IIHS does not make recommendations to automakers, but encourages them to redesign their vehicles for ultimate passenger safety. Terry Okita, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has been crash testing cars since 1994 and reviews things like a car's structure, restraints, and injury measures. Getting your child to eat healthy can be difficult, but dietitians say small changes can help. They suggest substituting their afternoon snack with fruit or having them try 1 new vegetable a week. Dietitians say making small changes gradually can lead to bigger changes down the road.
If they can see themselves do that every single day for a week or a month, they'll feel a lot more satisfied and they'll be able to even shoot for higher goals after that.
Dietitians also suggest bringing your child to the grocery store and allowing them to take part in meal preparation to encourage healthy eating.